The 70 most exciting facts about Australia. Australia is a highly developed country and one of the richest in the world. In addition to being an independent Western democracy with more than 20 million people, 70% of whom live in the 10 civilized cities. Most of the population is concentrated along the east coast and the southeast corner of the continent, and its lifestyle is largely Western. We may all know Sydney Opera, cricket, kangaroo and other features of Australia, but it's really a lot more diverse and bigger. Here are the 10 most interesting facts about Australia you might not know about. 1. Australia is the largest island and smallest continent. Australia is the only country to govern an entire continent with its remote islands. It is the largest island on the face of the Earth and is the smallest continent on the face of the Earth with no mountains. 2. Australia is the most densely populated continent. Australia is located between latitudes 10 and 39 south of the equator. The most densely inhabited continent with one of the world's lowest rainfall rates. 3/4 of its land is arid or semi-arid. And fertile areas are well irrigated and thus contribute effectively to help feed the world. 3. Australia is the 6th largest country in the world in terms of space. Australia is the 6th largest country in the world after Russia, Canada, China, America and Brazil, but its population is relatively small relative to its size. It has the longest limits in the world. Australia's borders extend to 5,614 kilometres and begin in Queensland and extend to Australia's Great Bay of Australia. 5. Australia has the longest straight rail line in the world. Trans-Australia Railways from Augusta in South Australia to Calgary in Western Australia are perfectly straight for 1,275 kilometres without any curvature, rise or fall of any kind. 6. Australia has the longest straight part of a road in the world. The highway from Nullapa in the western part of Australia stretches from Caledonia to Kigonia for 147 kilometres in a perfectly straight line, making it the longest straight part of the world. 7. Australia has 200 different languages and dialects. Australians speak 200 languages and dialects, including 45 indigenous languages. English is the most common language, followed by Italian, Greek, Cantonese, Arabic, Vietnamese and Mandarin. 8. The headquarters of the largest cattle farm in the world. The largest cattle farm in the world is South Australia's 24,000 square kilometre, which is slightly larger than the occupied state of Israel. It is the largest by 8,000 square kilometres from the Alexandria station in northern Australia and the largest by 8 times the largest cattle farm in America, Texas. 9. Australia has recently become one of the world's largest economies. Australia has been a rich country, but in recent years it has entered global competition for a total wealth of $6.4 trillion and inflation has fallen to 1.7% of the global economy. 10. Indigenous people are the first to settle in Australia. The first inhabitants of Australia were indigenous until Britain colonised Australia in 1788, but did not get any votes until 1967. Australia is a country that is big in size and beautiful in its scenery. Sydney Opera and exciting farm animals may be the first things to think of Australia at first glance. But what do you really know about Australia? 11. Australia has more than 10,000 beaches. If you visit one beach a day in Australia, it may take up to 27 years to visit them all. 12. The first 2 Australian policemen were all criminals. The first 2 officers of Australia were a gang of 8 members, Jephna Arthur Phillip, as the country's police. 13. World champion drinking beer Prime Minister. In 1945, Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke recorded in the Encyclopedia of Records as the world champion in drinking beer, with the record equivalent to drinking 2.5 shown of beer in just 11 seconds. And the pint is a cup equivalent to half a litre. 14. Queensland postman. One day a postman took some papers and worked for 9 whole hours from Cairns to Queensland, Australia, cutting off 1,400 kilometres and stopping to rest only 10 times. 15. The largest castle in Australia. Australia's largest castle, a 24,000 square kilometre farm called Anna Creek, makes it larger than Cyprus, Fiji and Slovenia. 16. Gum tree. The first Australian Labor Party meeting was said to have been held under a famous gum tree in Queensland in 1891 in response to a sheep maize strike. The tree still exists after being poisoned by saboteurs in 2006, but the tree is still intact. 17 to 260 million meat pies. Australians eat 260 million meat pies a year. More than 10,000 species of Australian spiders. Yes, if sharks and snakes are not enough to mutilate your skin, try counting the Australian spiders on each beach. 19. Jellyfish. If spiders, snakes and sharks are not enough, try to meet one of these Australian jellyfish and have enough time, about 2 or 3 minutes, to write your will. 20. Racing all Waffe. Racing is something very famous in Australia and happens everywhere there under the name of Todkay Race, and you can attend one day. Here are the strangest facts about Australia in a hurry that you will never hear about. Here are the strangest facts about Australia in a hurry that you will never hear about. 1. The area of Australia is the area from London to Moscow. 2. The largest farm in Australia. The size of Belgium. 3. Most of Australia's population live 50 kilometres offshore. 85%. 4. In 1880, Melbourne was the richest city in the world. 5. The richest woman in Australia, Gina Ritchie, increases her fortune $1 million every half hour. Ray, she earns $598 per second. 6. A group of opponents of the government of 200 people in 1892 tried to establish their own colony in Paraguay and called it the New Australia. 7. The world's first moon landing image was taken in 1969 from Honeysuckle Tracking Station near Canberra. 8. Australia is the second country in the world after New Zealand to allow women to vote and vote. 9. In Australia, 70 tourists violate their visas each week in an attempt to stay in Australia. 10. Former Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke scored a world record when he drank a litre of beer and a quarter of beer in 11 seconds. 11. The world's oldest fossil found in Australia dates back to 3.4 billion years. 12. The oldest police unit in Australia, made up of British prisoners who showed good conduct when stabilised in Australia. 13. Australians pay the world's most expensive electricity bill. 14. Saudi Arabia imports camels from Australia, even after Australia had about 1 million wild camels, forcing the government to pay about $19 million to get rid of them. 15. Australian airline Guantanamo used cooking oil once as fuel for an internal flight. 16. Australians spend more on gambling than any other population in terms of population. 17. Australia is a founding member of the United Nations. 18. Australia has the longest fence in the world, with a length of 5,614 kilometres, and was designed to protect the dingo in nature reserves. The city of Melbourne is the capital of sport in the world. 20. Kangaroo and native amios in Australia cannot walk back. 21. Australians are the only people in the world to eat animal meat, which is the country's symbol. If you visit a new beach in Australia every day, you need 27 years to visit all the beaches of the country. 23. The proportion of sheep in Australia is 3 times higher than the population. 24. Kangaroos are born only 1 centimeter long. 25. The city of Canberra was established in 1908 to resolve the crisis of choosing the capital of the Australian Federation after the conflict between Sydney and Melbourne. 26. In 1975, the Queen expelled the Australian government. The then Prime Ministers of Willem and the Australians voted for a new government. An Australian man once tried to sell New Zealand on eBay. -27. No Australian has died from a spider bite since 1979. -28. We recommend that you miss the opportunity to see the nature of Australia and beauty, and above all learn more about some strange facts relating to Australia. 30 facts about the nature of Australia. In Australian waters you will find a water jellyfish that can cause the heart to collapse and kill within minutes. 31. This is funny information, as the Australian government banned a series of children because the episode shown spiders as harmless. 32. Australia is divided into more than one constitution. If we assume that the larger constituency is an independent state, it will be the 19th country in terms of area. 33. The most expensive and largest gold piece made in Australia, weighing up to a ton. 34. During World War II, the Australian dog shotter rescued the soldiers' Australians when he alerted them to the arrival of the Japanese enemy aircraft before arriving in 20 minutes. 35. In some regions of Australia, you will be closer to space than you are to any surrounding town. 36. These large Australian insects bear the name tree lobsters because of the stiffness of their outer structure. 37. Australia has one of the most dangerous bee species in the world, killing more people a year than sharks. 38. In Australia, you will find a place called Anna Creek, a community of agricultural land, which is more than the size of Palestine. 39. Because of carnivorous birds, 40 people a year lose one eye. 40. Some trees in Australia produce liquids that cause very serious burns. 41. Despite the very small size of this jellyfish, the toxin it releases is 100 times more dangerous than the snake venom. 42. Australia's #1 highway is the longest highway in the world. 43. In Australia, 24 rabbits were introduced in 1859, and in just 70 years the number has doubled to 10 billion rabbits. 44. One of Australia's best burger restaurants was Burger King, but he had to change his name to Hungry Jack because of the rights of the first name. 45. Australian hurricanes are named Australian politicians. 46. Australian Prime Minister Harold Holt disappeared during swimming in 1967, and his body was never found. In honor of him, an Australian swimming pool was named after him. 47. Although the most highly spiders have been found in Australia, they have not caused human deaths since 1979. 48. Birds of Dromornis sturtoni Australia 15,000 years ago.